Hey guys, and welcome to another Bible study walkthrough where you're going to learn how to read and study the Bible here in Hebrews chapter 2, verse, I think we're on 16. If you haven't been watching the other Bible study walkthroughs, that's fine. You don't need to watch them to make sense of what we're doing today. With my kids screaming in the background, hopefully you'll develop some helpful, Bible study skills along the way and learn some tips as we're again in Hebrews 2:16. So the first two words we see are for surely, and he's about to get into what is surely, okay? But before, first tip, read it in context. Know what comes before this, and I'll just give you a little brief overview. The author of Hebrews has been talking about how Jesus has been perfected through suffering, how he's greater than angels, how there's a great salvation we should not neglect, and how Jesus sanctifies those who trust in him so that they can also be perfected through his, sacrificial death. And we get power over death through him because he defeated the one who has the power of death. Now we get to verse 16. And the reason we read things in context is because all of those main ideas are going to reinforce verse 16, but also connect to it in some way. It says, for surely, 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 surely. And I bet you guys are all wondering, what is surely? Surely it is not to angels that he helps, or it is not angels that he helps, but, the word but, something we're going to circle, highlight, underline. I'm just going to highlight it in orange, draw a circle around it. Very important word. So it goes like this, for surely it's not angels that he helps, but he helps the offspring of Abraham. Now it seems like this is a completely disconnected thought, so I'm going to write here, disconnected question mark, which I don't believe it is, but initially it seems like, what is this idea of Jesus helping the offspring of Abraham? In other words, humans. What is the point of him helping humans and not angels? What does that have to do with everything he's said thus far? Remember, the big point that the author's trying to put forth is, hey, Jesus is on another level than angels. He brings a great salvation. And one of the ways that Jesus is better and brings a great salvation is that he helps the offspring of Abraham being people, not just the physical descendants of Abraham being Israelites, right? But just people in general. Specifically, what's being addressed here are the Jews. So when you go, who are the offspring of Abraham? Just think the nation of Israel, okay? But this is not limited to the nation of Israel. This is just the people, or these are just the people he has in focus as he makes this point, right? So when we go back to verse 2, you probably won't be able to see it. Maybe you will, where it says for. And I should have highlighted the word for first to say, hey, verse 16 is about to explain, elaborate on, or prove what was said in verse 15. That Jesus destroys the one who has the power of death. He destroys the devil, right? He delivers those who are children, right, fellow humans. He delivers them from the fear of death and the slavery they were under. Now, verse 16 says, for, let me continue to elaborate on that, or because, or here's the reason, surely. And he's going to go into, Jesus doesn't help angels, he actually helps the offspring of Abraham, who were, again, we need to pay attention to what has been said about people. They're subject to lifelong slavery. They were enslaved to the fear of death. Verse 17, therefore. And I didn't really explain why I highlighted the word but it notes a contrast. It's saying he doesn't help angels, but, and this is important to recognize and underline when you read the Bible, is this notes a transition. He's changing direction in the flow of thought. He's saying he doesn't help angels, but let me show you who he does help, right? And what I want to do is take note of the fact, hey, the word helps is used twice. Maybe not a big deal. Maybe it is. Maybe just for this verse it's a big deal. But either way, I notice this word repeats twice in verse 16. That might indicate to me something very important, the way that Jesus helps. But take note of that. Hold on to repeating words as you see them. Verse 17 says, therefore, or, the result or the conclusion is, he had to be made like his brothers in every respect. If Jesus is going to help the offspring of Abraham, then therefore this has to be true. He has to be made like his brothers in every respect, so that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God. And then he'll go on, this comma is going to continue the sentence. It's a very long sentence. At least for me. I get lost in all these different statements. But what we want to do is when you see a long sentence like this, for me, this is long, I want to break this up into sections. So I would go like this. Therefore, he had to be made like his brothers in every respect, right? And I might highlight that in blue, just to note, this is one thought, that Jesus had to be made like his brothers in every respect, right? Then I would go, so that, this is the reason why he had to be made like his brothers or be a fellow human, is so that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest. And I might say, in the service of God might actually be another thought that's connected to being a high priest, but it is still a separate idea, emphasizing service. This emphasizes what he becomes. This emphasizes what he had to be made like, okay? So when you read the Bible, we're in almost to the end of chapter 2 here in Hebrews. We should have noted so far any ideas, any repeating words, any repeating themes that we've seen so far. So for instance, I might want to go back and think through this. Do I see anywhere else in the book of Hebrews, or at least the first 2 chapters, where Jesus is made like his brothers or made like a human, not in the sense that he's created, but in the sense that he takes on flesh and blood? Do I see anything like that? Do I see anything so far in the first 2 chapters about Jesus becoming something or serving God, right? Or paying for the sins of the people, which is going to be the next thought. And what I'm doing here is I'm just highlighting the different thoughts to help us make sense of the sentence as a whole. Sometimes it's easier to understand a sentence by breaking it down into different sections, right? So I know that he had to be made like his brothers. The reason is, or so that, this tells me why he did, he might become a merciful and faithful high priest. And a high priest, if you're unfamiliar with the Bible or you're unfamiliar with these terms, you might want to go look up this word in the Greek and go, what is the phrase here, high priest? What is the word used? What's the idea that I see in Scripture? Maybe look at a few verses that talk about the high priest, right? To know what it means that he becomes a high priest in the service of God. Sometimes you have questions like, what's a high priest? Well, if you keep reading, it'll explain certain dimensions of what it means. So I would go, what does it mean for him to be a high priest? Well, he serves God. He does something in service to God. Specifically here, Jesus is a merciful and faithful high priest. So I want to take note of those 2 descriptions of Jesus. He's merciful and he's faithful. I just want to take note of that, okay? Because the author did not have to add those words. They're intentional. They're necessary to further his point, right? So it's on me to know, what the author could have said, he became a high priest for us, period, done, let's move on. But he specifically mentions the fact that Jesus becomes a merciful high priest, a faithful high priest. So what I want to do is think through that and go, what does that emphasize about Jesus being a high priest? What does that emphasize about Jesus being made like one of us? What does that emphasize about Jesus helping the offspring of Abraham? Right? And I start to connect these ideas together because the author's not going to just use any random adjectives to describe Jesus. He's going to be intentional about the words he uses because these words are going to play into his argument or the main point he's making. Is that he's in the service of God and he makes propitiation. So if you come across a word that's like, never heard that before, never ever once, then go to a Greek lexicon, go online to Bible.org, to BibleHub.org, right? And look up what this word is in the Greek. What does it mean? What's a propitiation? How is it used in other contexts? Look at other verses that use it. The very simple way of explaining propitiation, it's the appeasement of wrath, right? The satisfactory payment for the sins of the people. So what is Jesus making propitiation for? As a Bible student, I want to make sense of what he's doing. He's paying for the sins of the people, right? So as we read the Bible, this will help us connect these ideas together. Jesus paying for our sins has to do with or is related to him being a merciful and faithful high priest. If you don't know what merciful or faithful means, again, go to a Greek lexicon and look up what these words are in the original Greek. What merciful and faithful mean in the context, right? But either way, we have, if we back it up a little bit, we have Jesus paying for the sins of the people as a merciful high priest, which he becomes, right? And he's made like us to represent us. That's what we see so far. Sometimes when you read the Bible, to make sense of what you're reading, you have to backtrack a little bit And kind of now that you have a big picture of like, well, I've read verse 16 and 17. Now I can go back and piece it together slowly and make sense of it, right? So something to think about is why angels are brought into this. The concept of spiritual messengers, angelic beings, it seems unrelated. This whole idea seems unrelated to Jesus, conquering death and beating the devil up, but it is related. I'm just saying it seems unrelated at first. Okay. Another thing to think about when you read the Bible is the fact that, again, think about if you've seen any ideas so far. For example, have I seen anything about Jesus being made like a fellow human being or being made like humans? And the answer is I absolutely have. I absolutely have. Where is it? It's in verse 14. Sorry, I lost track of where I was. Since therefore the children share in flesh and blood, he himself, being Jesus, he likewise partook of the same things. In other words, he became like one of us, took on human flesh. We see the same idea in verse 9. We see him who for a little while was made lower than the angels, namely Jesus, so that he can taste death for everyone, right? So we have Jesus here, becoming one of us, taking on flesh and blood, being made lower than the angels for a temporary season. So by the time I get to chapter 2 and I see this idea, right, of Jesus, being made like his brothers, which are the offspring of Abraham, if you didn't know, ask questions when you read the Bible. Go, who are the brothers here? Well, who has he mentioned prior? Maybe it relates to the offspring of Abraham, right? Maybe these brothers, have I seen the word brothers, sisters, family used, children used so far up to this point? The answer is yes. Let me know where in the first 2 chapters you've seen those words and how they connect. But back to the point, Jesus being made like his brothers in every respect, by the time I get to verse 17 here, I've seen this idea a few times. So this isn't new. It's just the author is connecting this statement back to previous ideas and times that he's made this point, that Jesus became one of us. But now he's elaborating on it. For him to be made like us is for him to be made a merciful and faithful high priest. All right, so sometimes when you see an idea used quite a bit or a synonymous word used for other ideas and words, or you see a repeating word, sometimes what happens is the author is progressively unpacking and explaining that. So each time he uses that word or he addresses that idea, he's going to explain it in further detail or elaborate on a dimension of it that he didn't before. Right? So verse 18 says, for because he himself has suffered when tempted, he's able to help those who are being tempted. So what I'm going to do is save this verse for the next Bible study walkthrough. I know you guys are really wanting me to finish this and connect it, but I want you to tell me in the comments, how do you think verse 18 relates to not just these 2 verses right here, but the rest of the entire chapter? Chapter 2, how does it relate? What are these ideas talking about? Specifically, focus in on the word for. It's going to connect to Jesus being a high priest, being one of us, paying for the sins of the people, helping the offspring of Abraham, right? And then verse 18 is going to kind of summarize that. So I think this is a good place for a chapter separation, is he's going to move into a new idea that continues furthering these points, but he's introducing a new idea to kind of explain what he's already said. All right, so let me know in the comments what you guys think and how this verse relates, and we'll address that in the next Bible study walkthrough. But in the meantime, go to abovereproachministry.com or take our completely free 40-day Bible study program linked in the description below. Yes, it's free. It's 40 days. It's self-paced. It's a lot of work, but if you want to learn how to read and study the Bible in depth, this is for you. Go check it out. Again, it's on our website or it's linked in the description below. We also have an 11-day program, a 27-day program, and other specific online courses you can take to learn how to read the Bible. All right? I'll see you guys in the next Bible study walkthrough. Bye.